YouTube? What's up, y'all? As you can see, yours truly got the fresh fade with a fresher white tee. But let me stop playing around. But look, so today I want to discuss conflict with close family members, relatives. Oh man, I think this is just such a touchy subject because it's such a relatable subject, because I think there comes a point in our life where we all have a cousin, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, parent who we've allowed conflict, right, to mess up our relationship with them, right? So they're a loved one, it could be a close loved one, right? But due to conflict, right, due to unresolved issues, we've allowed that to affect our relationship with them, right? To where we may not be on speaking terms, right? We can't be around each other. Things might have turned verbally abusive, physical, like, you know, this could have all turned for the worst. And that not only caused a rift between you guys, but it's also would cause a rift between other family members who may be involved in it. You know what I'm saying? That makes sense? So there's a story of Abram, right? So Abram, right? Abram migrated to this land, right? Abram, his wife, and Lot, right? This is early in the book of Genesis, way early in the Bible, right? So the three of them migrated in this land. There's Abram and his wife, and then there's his nephew, right? So let me tell you what's going on. Abram was very wealthy, right? He had livestock, cattle, you know what I'm saying? Like, he is for the agriculture stuff, you know what I'm saying? I'm not too familiar with the agriculture stuff, but he was very good at what he did, right? He was able to, you know what I'm saying, do very well with his resources, right? With his animals and livestock and, you know, that whole farming thing. He was really wealthy. He was very wealthy. But the thing is, his nephew was also very wealthy, right? He was just as good as Abraham, right? Like, he's in this agriculture, that farming, whatever like that. He was very good at what he did. So now we got two people, an uncle and a nephew, who are very wealthy in this whole farming thing, right? Agriculture, livestock, whatever you want to call it. But the thing is, they're close relatives. The thing is, they're in one land. So you have two wealthy people that are successful in an area, but they do it in one land, which means these people are competitors, right? So when he's doing well, that means he's taking business from him. When Lot's doing well, he's taking business from Abram. When Abram's doing well, he's taking business from Lot. That's conflict right there. Like, and what happened was their herdsmen, right? Their employees, their herdsmen, the people who, you know, handle all that business, their workers, they start getting into it. You know what I'm saying? So my workers beefing with his workers, and his workers got problems with my workers. So now we have an issue going on, right? And it's like, when you eat, I can't eat, and when I eat, you can't eat. And we competitors, because just how I need to feed my family, he gotta, you know what I'm saying, he's trying to look out for himself. So now it's an issue. But so after all this turmoil going on, Abram tells his nephew, he said, look, bro, he says just like this, he said, let's not allow this conflict to come between us and our herdsmen. After all, we are close relatives. I like that. He said, let's not allow this conflict to come between us or our herdsmen. After all, me and you are close relatives, so let's not let this conflict come between us. And I wanted to ask you, what conflict have you let come between you and your relative, right? What problem, what argument, what has become so big to where it has allowed you to come between you and your relative, right? Because as you can see, Abram, right? Abram knew that the money wasn't worth more than what they had, right? Abram knew that, like, okay, right? We're competitors and all that, but he knew, like, despite this the money and how I feed my family and this how you feed your family, no matter how wealthy, how successful I may get in this, how wealthy I may get, all the riches I may amass with this is not worth what me and you have. It's not that big. Look, Abram's basically like, look, I'll let it all go as long as, you know what I'm saying, this is much more important, right? And not only were they close, not only were they relatives, but we're close relatives. Because, like I said, Abram is Lot's uncle. So which means he knew him since he helped raise him, right? I'm sure he's seen him since he was a little boy growing to a man, right? So they're close relatives, and we have close relatives where we have allowed conflict to come between it. Despite all the years and history and good memories that we have allowed conflict to take us away you know what I'm saying, we have allowed conflict, or we let our pride and our egos get so big to where it tarnishes our relationship forever, right? Matter yet, I know this story. I'm gonna give you guys a story. So I know, and this is why I always was hesitant on if I ever had any entrepreneurship ideas or business idea ventures I wanted to do. I always told my friends I would never do them with you. I would never get into business with a friend of mine or family. Reason being because I don't want that to deter our relationship. So I'm gonna tell you a story. I know a pretty wealthy guy. He used to, train me back when I was in high school. Real nice guy. I'm not gonna say his name, but Coach was always good. Trained me and my close friend. So I never quite knew what he did for many years. I never really knew. I just knew him as an old white dude with money. I ain't never knew what he did, right? But he always took the time for free to train me and a friend of mine. 2 black dudes, 2 black kids in high school trying to play college football. He's trained us for free from time to time, They never charged nothing. And we used to bond that way. Every now and then he'd take us out to eat, him and his wife. He was a real cool dude. So anywho, he told me, so as we started bonding more as we got older, because I met him at like 16, 17, and like 20, 21, when he'd take us out to eat, he'd have real more adult conversations with us. And he told me one day, he said, so I asked him one day, it's been months since I seen him, so we all sitting down. I said, man, how you been? And he telling me how he been, everything's been well. I said, how's the business? Because I know a little about his business, but I don't know a lot. I never really, knew too much. And he was like, man, I hate it. I said, for real? Like, what's going on with the business? He told me, he said, nothing wrong with the business or the sales or how much money we're bringing in, the employees, like I'm the owner, but the problem is I'm a co-owner and my brother's an idiot. I hate my brother. I can't stand his guts. Like, I hate this dude. I'm like, dang, for real? And he's like, yeah, like, I want to rip his head off. I can't stand this dude. And this like a 60-something-year-old man telling me this. And he told me, and I think a few months later after that, when I met with him again, he's like, he basically was just like, him and his brother couldn't do business together no longer, and that the business and their differences in the businesses and their disagreements that they were having in business had affected their relationship to where they couldn't even work together no more, right? Not only were they couldn't work together no more, his brother bought him out. He bought him out for me with like $1 or $2 million, right? And he bought him out for his rights. He was like, look, so the company was split 50-50, like I own one half, you own the other half. To settle the differences, right? He was like, you know what? Kind of like what Abram tried to do. He was like, you know what? Look, just buy me out. You know what I'm saying? Just buy me out. Look, they negotiated, came to agreement. I think he bought him for his half for like maybe $1 or $2 million, and that was it, right? And as we may be thinking, oh man, like he got to retire $1 or $2 million, $1 or $2 million cash, right? That may sound good to us, but what we don't know is he was like, when he got there, he was like, bro, I have no reason to talk to my brother again. Like I would never talk to him, right? We're not in the office no more. We're not doing business together, so there's no need for me to talk to him. And he was like, I remember at the end of that story, he was like, Ross, don't ever do business with family. Don't ever do that. Don't ever do business with family, friends, anything like that. Now, I'm not saying I would or I wouldn't, right? But I was always cognizant of that. Like, like I'm very hesitant on if I ever were to do business with family, because from that, I got to see, how conflict can deter relationship, right? So these, they're older men. They may take their differences to their graves, right? And their brothers, so I'm not sure if their kids and spouses and everybody involved in this is also kind of like, since they aren't on good terms, you know what I mean? So that always, that always stuck with me, right? How we could just allow conflict and things like personal issues to mess up the whole thing. Just one small issue to blow the whole thing up, right? And so Abram goes on back to what Abram did. Abram tells Lot, he's like, look, I don't want this conflict to mess up, what we got going on. So he told him, he said, look, he was a bigger person here. He said, Lot, we and you are gonna split this land up, right? We're gonna split this land up because we can't do this together, right? So we're gonna split this land up. And this is why I admire him. He said, if you want the land to the left, I'm gonna take the one on the right. If you want the one on the right, I'm gonna take the left. So Lot looked around and he looked out and he saw this one, I'm not familiar with the name of the city was. Well, actually, what became Sodom and Gomorrah. But he picked, you know, around where Sodom and Gomorrah was at. He looked at all the water, how beautiful it was, and the great pastures in. He said, you know what? I'm gonna take that side. You get over there. I'm gonna go over here. And they settled it different. He went about his way, and he took his things and went that way. All right. But I admire how Abram took the high road, because he was willing to take the high road for the sake of his nephew, because he loved his nephew. But the biggest thing is, he was willing to please his nephew, because just how Lot saw how beautiful that land was, I'm sure Abram had to see that too. Abram knew, right? I'm sure Lot got what appeared to be the bigger end of the stick, the better end of the bargain. And Abram was like, you know what? Like, you got it, right? He was willing to put his differences aside, right, to please his family member. He was willing to compromise while still pleasing them. But also, I like Abram was able to stand firm. See, he didn't allow Lot to push over him, right? He didn't allow, he didn't give him the whole thing. Nah, he's like, no, we're gonna take half. I'm gonna let you take the half that you want, right? So I wanted to ask you, is there a way that you can compromise with your family while still, you know, still being firm in whatever you desire, but putting their needs first while still pleasing them? Like, whatever you and your family member have going on, really think about that. Is there a way we could resolve what we're going through, but come to a common ground where I can still please you first, right? So, you know what? I'm gonna take the high road. I'm gonna do what satisfies you for the sake of this relationship, but we're gonna compromise and come to an agreement. Whatever you're going through, really ask yourself that, right? Because whatever got you in this situation, you think one way, they think another, or whatever it is, whatever it was, y'all not coming to a common ground here. So it's best that, you know what, that you just take the high road. You just do what you can to please them, and just come to a compromise, right? And because I'm gonna go fast forward in the story, right? So the Lord saw this, and the Lord gave him favor. So after Lot took his land, the Lord told Abram, he said, I want you to look out from the east. This is what the Lord told Abram. He said, after Lot went on, took his land, he said, I want you to look out to the east, the west, the south, and the north. He said, I want you to look as far as you possibly can. Like, look as far as off in the distance you can, in every single direction. He said, I'm going to give you all of this land is yours, and your descendants going to live on it. And I promise it's going to be your land that's going to prosper and do well, everything. Right? And the Lord showed him favor for his righteousness. Because what Abraham did was the righteous thing. Abraham took the higher road, right? And he pleased his nephew, right? He was willing to put his pride aside. Knew it wasn't worth it, and he was able to work things out with his nephew, right? And he might have took the shorter end of the stick, the shorter end of the bargain, right? But the Lord saw that righteousness, and he said, I want you to look out however far you can look out. I want you to look out as far as you can in every single direction, and I'm going to give you that land as yours. So the Lord honored what he did. That was an honorable act. The Lord honored that. And I want to tell you, I know it may seem hard to take the high road. I know it is. I've been there. It may seem hard to take the high road with family, even when you feel that you're right. You may firmly feel like know that they're wrong, and you know that they're right, and they might have wronged you and told you some things along the midst of y'all being angry at one another. But although you might not be pleased with what you may did, and they might have been pleased, I promise you, God was pleased in what you did. And God, just how God honored Abraham and showed him favor for taking the righteous road, God's gonna show you that same thing. Because I'm not sure if, let's say, Abraham doesn't take the high road, right? Abraham kills Lot, right? Abraham kills Lot over his land, and he was just greedy and took the whole thing. I don't believe that the Lord honors Abram in the same way that he did. And I want to tell you, whatever you're going through, I promise you, it's not worth lashing out, getting revenge, being prideful with your family member. Because I promise you, it may appear to be sucky, right? It may appear to suck, you know what I'm saying? Having to, just take that one on the chin and be, appear to seem weaker or softer. but you are not actually stronger, and the Lord's gonna show you favor, right? The Lord's gonna show you favor in that. And I'm gonna finish this story off because just in that same land that his nephew took, right? So they went with their separate ways, and after the Lord had told this to Abram, later on in the story, that same land he took became Sodom and Gomorrah. And if you're not familiar with Sodom and Gomorrah, the people that, the land that looked so good that Lot took, the same land that looked so good, the people that were living there were wicked. And the Lord didn't like how they was living. So that same land that he took, God destroyed the whole thing. Like the whole thing was destroyed. Like that same thing that he destroyed. And if Abram would have took that land, you know what God would have did? Destroyed that land. So God knew what he was doing all along, right? So I just want to tell you, God honors righteousness. So if you're dealing in that situation, take the high road and mend the relationship, because although it may not seem like that, you may not seem that wanting to do that, God's gonna honor that. He always does. Like they may not, that family member might not even see what you did or appreciate what you did for them, but God did. And that's the only person we really need to aim to please at the end of the day. So if you have any, you know what I'm saying, you have any differences with a family member, man, I promise you, it's not worth it, and mend it. Man, I love y'all. Fresh white tea fade boy, signing out.